This video is going to cover a few new components, namely the scroll view and, you guessed it, a text area. So text area is a big area that we can actually do multiple lines of text, and we're going to wrap that into a scroll view so we can scroll them. So let me just take this, go Control A, Control V, and just paste some code. Voila. So the premise being, if you were on a smaller device like a cell phone and you had a large body of text, you could now scroll it. And you could say things like this. Going to show you how to work with the scroll view and automatically scroll down to new content. Let's see how this works. Going to do a lot of typing in this video. I'm not going to really do a lot of this in the designer. I might check the designer for a few things. It might show you a few little bugs. I don't want to paint the designer in a bad light. It's a great tool. There are some bugs, as there is with every software. All right, so column. One of the big arguments is that if you work in the designer, you forget how to code. It's 100% not true. I actually switch between the two quite often. And in future videos, you're going to actually see me bounce back and forth more so than I have already. So I'm going to say anchors.fill, and we're going to parent. So this column is going to take up the entire window. Let's do a spacing of 5. Now we're going to add a scroll view. Now when I'm writing the code as opposed to dragging and dropping from the designer, I tend to add the components first. Not mandatory, but it's just something I do. So I'll put the main components on. For example, I'm going to put a text area in here. That way I have a general idea of what this is going to look like. I've worked with it enough. I can say, okay, so I've got a column that's going to take up everything. I've got a scroll view, and inside the scroll view I've got a text area, but underneath all of that is a text field. It's pretty straightforward once you really get the hang of it. Let's go ahead and give this an ID. So we're going to say ID scroll view. And view is a little bit misleading. You might see this and go, we're working with model view programming. No, this is a viewport, and it's a little bit different. Think of a viewport like literally looking out like your bedroom window or something. It's just looking into a different pane, a different area. So we're going to say width. I'm going to say parent dot width, and then height. And this is going to be the parent dot height minus, and we're going to do a little bit of math here. We're going to say the text field, and I haven't given that an ID yet, so let's jump down here, say ID text field. Doesn't really matter what ID we give it, as long as it has some sort of ID we can work with. So really I'm saying I want the scroll view to take up the entire parent, but from the height it's going to start at 0, 0 and go all the way down to the parent minus the height of this little guy here. Text area, this is going to be ID text area. Again, we should name that something a little more professional if this was a professional grade application. And parent dot width text, I'm just going to say nothing. I don't want anything in there to start off with. We are going to have some keyboard interaction down here. So I'm going to say focus is true. Text is just blank. And let's do some keyboard work. So we're going to say keys, which is our global for the actual keyboard, and we're going to say on return pressed. This is literally the enter key on the keyboard. And we're going to say text area dot append, and we're going to append the text area text. Actually, I'm sorry, the text field text. I was looking at something totally different here. There we go. We could have very easily just said, because again, when you're in the brackets, you have full access to the scope. Now, the problem comes in if you have a naming collision, like if the keys had a text, then you're going to have an issue. All right. Now we want to take this snazzy text field because we've already appended that into the text area, and we're just going to simply clear it. What we want to do next is, because we added something, we want to take the scroll view and automatically scroll down to it. And this is a little convoluted. It's a little more advanced than where we are, but I think we can do it. So we're going to say content item. And this is where IntelliSense is probably going to not help us. And we're going to say content Y equals, and what are we really doing here? So we're taking the scroll view, and the scroll area is pretty much everything in the brackets, or you should look at it as child components, this text area. That's our content item. And we're going to say the content Y, the up-down axis, we want to set that to a specific area, or I should say a specific point in space. So we're going to say text area dot height. So we're going to move it all the way to the bottom of that text area. So we're going to take that text area and move it up. But we want to minus the scroll view dot content item dot height. Looks confusing because it is confusing. All right, so we're going to take the scroll view. We're going to take that content item, this guy, and we're going to say its Y position, where it actually is on the screen, like if we were to actually move it, is going to equal the height of this thing minus the scroll view's content item height. So basically we said take your height minus your height. Very confusing. Let's explore this. And, well, I want to make that a little longer. We have our text field here. Let's go ahead and I'm going to grab something off the screen, paste it in. So our scroll view is working. We can actually scroll now. And if we kind of adjust this window, we now have scroll bars in both directions. I want to take this and move it across. So text field width, it's going to be the parent.width. Let's explore this little guy, see if we've got too much down here. And I'm going to move this up, and I'm just going to say, hello, how are you? Very cool, huh? And I'm going to take some text. You can also type up here, by the way, if you really felt like it. And I'm going to say, hello, again. Notice how it does at the bottom. So I'm going to scroll all this up, and we're going to say, this is where we are, just so you can see in the viewport where we are. We can scroll down, but as I type something, this is going to automatically scroll down for us. So I'm going to say, hello again, enter. Boom, drops us all the way down to the very bottom. Let's explore this a little bit here. And I'm going to stop it right here. So thinking about this logically, the text area and the scroll view's content item you would think are the same. Let's explore that a little bit. Again, I'm going to just copy and paste some text. Whoops. There we go. And we're going to say, we are here, just so you can see on the screen where we are. And I'm going to say, hello world. Whoop, what happened? Type it again. Hello. Nope, it's gone. Where is it? Well, if we scroll up, what really happened is it took the very bottom and shoved it up to the 0, 0 position. Let's try that one more time. Oh, it's gone. Now, if we just click, it's going to automatically pull it down. And that's what's going on here, is the content item is a little bit misleading. The content item is actually an invisible little container that this sits in. I'm probably saying that badly, and the documentation explains it much, much better, but it gets a little more advanced than where we are. Basically, scroll view content item Y is going to equal the text area height, the entire height of this guy, minus the content item height. Wow, that is confusing. This little line right here, could probably be vastly improved. And to be brutally honest, I saw about 1,000 people out on Stack Overflow asking how to scroll the content here. So in short, scroll view is a little bit more complex, but it adds a lot of functionality into our little program. Looking at it in the designer, you can see what's going on here. We have a column with a scroll view and the text area is a child. And looking at the scroll view, we can see we have a content height, and that is 16. Content height used for calculating total implicit height. So there's a lot of math going on here. Let me kind of expand that out so it's a little easier. We have width, height, and it's basically there's some math going on in there. We have different properties we can play around with. Big takeaway from this is, well, this can get very complex very quickly, but using a scroll view along with something like an editable text area, you can have some pretty cool things very quickly.